Okay, here we go with we're back with Unit 2, Section 3, and Section 3 is going to be one of the bigger units or bigger sections in this unit. We're going to look at the Cuban Revolution and its role in the Cold War, and obviously with a big emphasis on the Bay of Pigs and the Cuban Missile Crisis. So let's begin. So here we have Cuba, a very large island in the Caribbean basin, very close to the United States. Obviously, it's going to give it strategic importance. We want to take a look back at some Cuban history, and Cuba officially became independent in 1902 after the Spanish-American War. The United States actively took part in this war to give the Cuban people their independence, helped them win their independence from Spain. And obviously, after that war was over, the United States is going to want something in return from the newly independent country of Cuba. So first of all, it was legal that we, the United States, allowed Cuba to write a constitution, and we added what became known as the Platt Amendment. And the Platt Amendment basically said the United States had the right to intervene in Cuban affairs to make sure it was a stable country. American businesses are going to do really well in Cuba: sugar, mining, tourism, especially oil refinery, and even banking. American businesses are going to help Cuba grow. If you look over here, Cuba became a really big destination resort for Americans. Obviously, being in the Caribbean, it was beautiful. Probably the other big aspect was going to be Guantanamo Bay, which the United States is going to get a naval base in Cuba. We'll go to the next slide and take a look at that. So down here, on the far end of the island, on the island of Cuba, there actually is even today an American naval base located in Cuba at Guantanamo Bay, often referred to as Gitmo. And we're going to come back to this when we get to the war on terror. It's going to have an important part of it. This is also part of the agreement of the Platt Amendment. So we're going to fast forward to the post-World War II era. And in 1952, a man by the name of Fulgencio Batista will seize power in Cuba, and he'll be recognized by the United States. Why do we support that? Why do we support him? A good friend of the U.S. because he was a staunch anti-communist. Kind of a major reason why the American government will support leaders all over the world is if they're anti-communist during the Cold War. The problem was Batista's regime was very corrupt. When you use the term heavy-handed tactics, throwing political opponents in jail, not really allowing for many freedoms, eventually leads to a revolution in Cuba. And this is where we meet Fidel Castro. Castro had led an earlier revolution, but was put in jail in 1953. When he was released from jail, he was exiled to Mexico. While he was in Mexico, he began plotting his next step. And he returns in 1956 with his brother and another revolution named Che Guevara. And they organize a successful revolt this time. And they're able to, force, Batista out into exile, and they seize control of Cuba. And here's a picture of Che. And honestly, at first, the United States really wasn't upset that Castro took over. They figured they could work with Castro just like they work with Batista. But that relationship goes sour really quick, and the key word is nationalize. Castro began to nationalize many of the major industries in Cuba, which means they went from being privately owned to state ownership. And the emphasis was on the oil companies and banking. Now, you can probably figure out that these industries were going to be actually owned by American businesses. And they were basically taken from them, again, private ownership, and then transferred over to the Cuban government, which is greatly going to upset these American businessmen who will go back to the United States and obviously go to the U.S. government and ask for help. Again, that's going to be it for the first part of Section 3. There's an excellent video here called Declassified: Castro the Survivor. We will be watching the second part of this in class, but I do suggest if you have the time to watch this 45-minute video. It's an excellent story of the revolution, of Castro's early years, and then his breaking with the United States, which will lead to which again will lead to the showdown with the Cuban Missile Crisis, which we will get to in Section 3, Part 2. Thank you very much.